On the first day of the dating show's broadcast, Hywin and I mutually selected each other as the least likely to develop feelings candidates. Yet, the entire internet had already moved the marriage registry into the comments section. On the third day, the show invited our exes even more absurdly. Late that same night, I personally witnessed those two exes kissing in the storage room. Hywin stood behind me, speaking slowly. How about we give them a lesson, too? Hywin and I are the two people in the entertainment industry universally considered least likely to ever date. At an award ceremony 3 years ago, the host asked him how he would rate my acting. He held the microphone, his face expressionless. Not bad. The host breathed a sigh of relief. Then he added another sentence. When she's not delivering lines. Half the entertainment industry lowered their heads on the spot, their shoulders shaking uncontrollably. A reporter immediately shoved the microphone in front of me. I stared at Hywin's handsome, yet utterly tactless face, smiling with extreme gentleness. Teacher, his line delivery is also very good. Hywin raised an eyebrow slightly. I continued after muting the sound. It's especially moving from that day on. Every time we appeared together, someone would prepare blood pressure medication in advance. So when my agent told me she was sending me to participate in a dating show and that Hywin was among the regular cast, my first reaction was to check the contract. Sis, did the company go bankrupt? My agent, Sue Rand, flipped the contract to the last page and pointed at the appearance fee. Take another look. I lowered my head and counted the zeros after the number. The company can still be saved. So, are you going? Yes. Dignity is something you can't discuss on an empty stomach. On the first day of filming, I dragged my suitcase into the Love House. Hywin was sitting in the center of the living room. Black shirt, long legs, cold face, holding a financial magazine in his hand. The other guests nearby were sitting up straight. He looked up, saw me, and paused for a moment with the magazine in his hand. I flashed him a professional smile. Teacher, can you understand it? The living room instantly fell silent. He closed the magazine, his tone calm. I can't, so I wanted to ask for your advice. Just as I was about to exchange pleasantries, he spoke again. After all, you even dare not read the contract penalty clause. I stumbled for a moment last year. I signed an endorsement for a beverage without carefully reading the additional terms and ended up drinking bitter gourd juice for half a month straight. Only a few people in the circle knew about this. I stared at him. You investigated me. It was on the trending searches for 2 days, and you clicked on it. The platform pushed it automatically. You could have swiped it away. My fingers slipped. He answered flawlessly. The director sitting behind the camera was grinning, so wide his mouth almost split. I plopped down onto the sofa opposite Hywin. The show officially began. The first task was to choose the least likely to develop feelings person among all the guests. The production team handed each person a writing board. Without a second thought, I wrote down the 3 characters for Hywin. When the answers were revealed, he and I raised our boards at the same time. Written on his board in stark contrast were the characters for Jen. The host Tainchin love to stir up trouble. Please explain your reasons to each other. Hywin spoke first. I value my life. I quickly added, I obey the law. The other guests all collapsed in laughter. The live stream chat was completely out of control. Please get married. I want to see who calls the police first on the wedding day. Others join a dating show to fall in love. These 2 join to train their stress tolerance. I hereby declare this couple's name is the lacking morality duo. Just met 3 minutes ago, and they already have the vibe of an old married couple arguing. I couldn't see the comments, but I only knew the director was so excited his face was flushed red. Next came the breakfast making task for 2. And of course, Hywin and I ended up in the same group. The rules were simple. One person is blindfolded, the other gives instructions, and they work together to make a sandwich. I was blindfolded, my hands fumbling to find the bread. Hywin stood beside me, giving instructions. Left, lettuce. I reached out and found a leaf. Right, tomato. I found 2 slices of tomato. Front, mayonnaise. I squeezed out a big circle. After taking off the blindfold, I found the contents on the plate looked perfectly normal. So normal it made me uneasy. I lowered my head and took a bite. The next second, a wave of wasabi rushed straight to the top of my head. I looked up sharply. Haiwen had already picked up his water glass, covering half his face, but his shoulders were shaking. I swallowed the sandwich in my mouth, tears stinging my eyes. Haiwen, what is it? Good. Looks pretty good. Then you should eat more of it. I grabbed the remaining half of the sandwich and shoved it straight into his mouth. He wasn't prepared and got stuffed completely. A chorus of gasps came from the living room. Hai bit down on the sandwich, his eyes locking onto me. I smiled and patted his shoulder. Shared joy is double joy. He chewed a couple of times, his atoms apple-bobbing as he actually swallowed. Then, without a word, he rushed into the kitchen. A few seconds later, the sound of the faucet running wildly came from the kitchen. The live stream audience was losing it. When the popularity rankings were announced at noon, Haiwen and I were at the top by a landslide. Tianxin asked me for my thoughts. I stared at the name Yuan combo on the list, my vision going dark. Advise viewers to see a doctor. Immediately, shuangwen, drinking water slowly and deliberately. Respect personal preferences. I turned my head to look at him. You're adapting pretty quickly. It's just a show. As he said this, his fingers unconsciously spun the cup. I wanted to press further, but the door suddenly burst open. The director raised a megaphone and announced the arrival of 2 new mystery guests. High heels clicked across the floor. Yun walked in first, wearing a white dress. She was the only ex-girlfriend Haiwen had ever publicly acknowledged. The man following close behind her wore a light-colored suit, his smile gentle. Luji, by my ex-boyfriend and the one who, during my lowest point, publicly accused me of being extreme and overly controlling. Lu J's eyes immediately reened when he saw me. Yu Tang, long time no see. The cup in my hand suddenly slipped. Glass clattered against the table with a sharp sound. Haiwen reached out and pressed down on the bottom of the cup. The back of his hand pressed against my fingertips. Hold it steady. I looked up at him. He wasn't looking at me, just staring at Luji, his eyes icy cold. Luji walked up to me, smoothly taking my cup. You're still so careless. My fingertips curled inward, my chest tight with a dull ache. Back when we were dating, he often used that tone with me. Why are you always so careless? Why do you always mess things up? Why can't you be more mature? I heard it so much that I actually started to believe I couldn't do anything right. I was about to snatch the cup back when he took it first. He pulled out a tissue and slowly wiped the water off the bottom. She's careless, but you're pretty careful. The smile on Luji's face froze for a moment. What does teacher he mean by that? The cup didn't even tip over, and you grabbed it that fast. Haiwen set the cup back in front of me. Practiced. Luji opened his mouth. Tianxin quickly stepped in to smooth things over. It seems you all know each other. Let's have the new guests give a brief introduction. Yun sat down next to Haiwen. She tilted her face, smiling at him. Do I even need an introduction? The atmosphere in the living room instantly turned awkward. Her hand naturally fell onto Haiwen's arm. Haiwen, you used to hate noise the most. Are you getting used to being on this kind of show? Haiwen glanced down at her hand. Yun didn't let go. I bit down on my straw, my heart inexplicably tightening. Luji sat down beside me and said softly, How have you been these past few years? Pretty good. Your stomach used to be weak. Are you still eating on time? The show provides meals. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? Luji was at a loss for words. Haiwen suddenly let out a laugh. I turned my head to look at him. He nonchalantly picked up an orange from the fruit bowl. Yun's hand was still on his arm. The more I looked, the more annoyed I got. I kicked his chair. He tilted his head. What's up? I gritted my teeth and whispered. Public place. Watch your image. What image? It's an eyesore. Heen stared at me for 2 seconds, then suddenly raised his hand and brushed Yun's hand away. The smile on Yun's face froze. His tone was flat. Fair point. That inexplicable knot in my chest suddenly loosened by half. The afternoon task was ex-girlfriend and ex-boyfriend canned. The two new guests each answered 10 questions about us. Luigi got 9 right. What color I like, which hand I use to hold chopsticks, what I drink before bed, what kind of weather I hate the most. He remembered everything. Everyone sighed over his deep feelings. When it came to the last question, Tianchen asked, "What is Zhang Yutong's most severe allergy?" Luigi froze. She doesn't have any allergies. Right. I looked up during the second year we were dating. I accidentally ate a mango and was rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment. I was filming in another city at the time. I called him over a dozen times, but he didn't answer a single one later. He told me his phone had died that very night. Though he liked Yun's post, Tianchen flipped open the answer card. The correct answer is mango. Luigi immediately looked at me. You Tang. I didn't know. Now you do. Why didn't you tell me? My nails dug into my palm. He suddenly placed a peeled orange into my hand. Eat. I frowned. I don't want to. Shut your mouth so you don't say things you shouldn't again. He lowered his voice to a near whisper. I understood. Cameras were everywhere. Lu Ji was the best at turning someone else's loss of control into his own grievance. I shoved the orange slice into my mouth, forcing down the words that were on the tip of my tongue. It was Zion's turn to answer. She only got 4 right, but on the last question, she revealed the secret Haiwen least wanted public. He's afraid of the dark and of confined spaces. Haiwen's fingers clenched abruptly. A flicker of smugness crossed Yun's eyes. When he was 20, he got trapped in an elevator. Ever since then, he needs someone to accompany him every time he rides one. The others exchanged glances. Clearly, this wasn't something meant to be aired live. Tianchen fumbled for the question card. That's not in the questions, is it? Yun covered her mouth. I'm sorry, I just know him too well, and I said too much in the heat of the moment. His jaw tightened. I tossed the orange peel onto the table. Teacher Ya's mouth is pretty fast. Yun looked at me. I smiled. Your brain hadn't given permission, but your mouth already finished the paperwork. Someone nearby couldn't help it and let out a snort. Yun's face changed. I just didn't want to hide anything from Haiwen. Then reveal your own secrets. I leaned back into the sofa. Someone else's wounds aren't your trophy to prove your devotion. Yun's smile completely vanished. Heen turned his head. His gaze landed on my face, lingering for a long time late that night. Hunger kept me awake. I snuck downstairs to find something to eat. As I passed the storage room, I heard very soft voices inside. Why bring up the elevator today? It was Luigi. Yun lowered her voice to answer only by making him remember his weakest moment. Will he start to rely on me again? Zhang Yu Tang is the same. She softens to kindness, not force. Don Titi, push her too hard. You're worried about her. I'm just afraid the plan will fail. My back pressed against the wall, and my breath caught for a second. The next moment, the sound of a delicate kiss came through the crack in the door. I reached out and pushed it open a sliver. Luigi was holding Ihan in his arms. They were kissing, completely lost in each other. My mind exploded. Just then, a hand reached from behind and covered my mouth. I nearly jumped out of my skin. Heen pressed close behind me, leaning down to look through the gap in the door. After a few seconds, he slowly tightened his grip. I stomped on his foot. He winced and let go. I turned around, my lips trembling with anger. Why don't you make any sound when you walk? You were watching too intently. Did you get an eyeful? No. He lowered his head, his tone calm. The angle was bad. Haiwen and I crouched in the kitchen, holding an emergency meeting to avoid being picked up by the cameras. We each hugged a bag of chips, pretending to be sneaking a midnight snack. I lowered my voice. When did they get together? Heen tore open the chip bag. How would I know? Isn't Yun your ex-girlfriend and Luigi is your ex-boyfriend? I broke up with him a year ago. What a coincidence. Same here. I froze. Luigi and I broke up in June last year. Ihan and Haiwen broke up in June last year, too. This wasn't a coincidence anymore. This was a coincidence. Riding on my head and slapping me in the face. I grabbed a handful of chips and shut them into my mouth, crunching loudly. What plan were they talking about? Don't know yet. Just go ask them directly. Then they'll say they were rehearsing. Leak the recording. Did you get it? I patted all my pockets. No phone. Heen didn't have his either. We looked at each other. The air was filled with the silence of our intelligence. Having packed up and left, I covered my face. We crouched here for ages, and all we got was sore knees and nothing else. Hi. Hywin handed me the chips, and we ate a bag of the production team's chips. Consider it compensation for the work injury. What are you going to do? I wiped the potato chip crumbs off my fingers, since they want us to become dependent on them again. We'll do the opposite. The opposite how? Let them see what it feels like to lose control. Hywin raised an eyebrow. Be more specific. I reached my hand out toward him. Former Anti-Fraud Alliance. Want to join? He looked down at my hand, but didn't take it immediately. Jang Yet Tong. You're not planning to take advantage of me, are you? I pulled my hand back instantly. Don't worry. My taste is consistent. The moment I finished speaking, he grabbed my hand. His palm was warm. His fingers were long. My heart suddenly skipped a beat. He let go quickly. Pleasure working with you. The next day, the production team announced a paired dating mission. Everyone had to invite one person of the opposite sex. Luji walked toward me with a cup of coffee. Yun also held a rose, heading toward Hywanyuan. Hywin and I exchanged a glance. He suddenly stood up and strode toward me. Just as Luji handed the coffee to me, Hywin snatched the cup away. He lowered his head and took a sip. Too sweet. The smile on Luji's face cracked. That was for you, Tong. She doesn't like sweet drinks either. Luji immediately looked at me. My heart sank. I used to love sweet coffee, but after the breakup, I couldn't drink it anymore back then. I suffered from insomnia every night and got through the days on black coffee. How did he know? Before I could figure it out, he had already handed me his invitation card. Teacher Jang, want to go on a date? Yun stood behind him, the rose in her hand, drooping. Luji gripped his coffee cup tightly. I watched both of them change expressions at the same time, and my back straightened instantly. Sure, the corner of Hywin's mouth twitched. That decisive, mainly because I want to see who's going to panic. The live stream audience instantly erupted. The other guests let out a synchronized cheer. Tainchin held up the mission card, her voice trembling with excitement. Congratulations, Yutong and Hywin. You've earned the first date of the day. Luji suddenly spoke. Yutong, you don't have to force yourself to spite me. I turned to look at him. There was a familiar certainty in his eyes. Every time we fought in the past, he would define my motives for me. If I got angry, it was because I was oversensitive. If I argued back, it was because I was immature. If I left, it was because I wanted his attention. Now he was deciding again that my choice of Hywin was just to spite him. I picked up the black coffee on the table and downed most of it in one gulp. The bitterness pressed down on my tongue. Louis, who I choose, what does it have to do with you? His face turned pale. I'm just worried about you. You should worry about yourself first. What do you mean? I pulled out a tissue and lightly wiped the water stain off the cup's rim. Didn't sleep well last night. Luji's pupils suddenly contracted. The rose and Yun's hand fell to the ground with a slap. Heen and I both looked over. She quickly bent down to pick up the flower. Her ears already bright red when someone's guilty. Even a dropped flower can leave evidence. The date location was a vegetable market. The production team gave us 100 yuan to prepare dinner for 6 people. Hywin took the money and headed straight for the seafood stall. I grabbed the corner of his shirt. What are you doing buying shrimp? After buying shrimp, what's left for everyone else to drink? Northwest Wind, aren't you good at haggling? Who started that rumor? You said in your last interview that you never lose money buying groceries. That's because I don't buy any. Heen stopped walking. The cameraman laughed so hard his lens wobbled in the end. We spent an hour grinding through the market and came back with ingredients for 3 dishes and 1 soup. When we paid, we had 2 yuan left. I proudly slapped the 2 coins into Yukin's palm. See that? That's what you call managing a household. He stared at the 2 coins in his hand. What can you buy? Dignity. That's a bit cheap. Yours might be more expensive. Mine is just this price. He lowered his head and finally couldn't help but laugh. That was the first time I saw Haiwen truly smile. Not the polite curve from interviews, nor the smirk when he teased me. His brows and eyes, completely relaxed. The coldness on his face, washed clean away. I stared for 2 seconds, then quickly looked away. That spot in my chest suddenly felt a little restless. Back at the house, Luigi was already standing in the kitchen with an apron on. He skillfully took the groceries from my hands. Go rest. I'll cook. Before I could say anything, Haiwen snatched the bag right back. This is our mission. Luigi lowered his voice. Can you cook? No. Haiwen answered with absolute conviction. Then why did you grab the ingredients? She can't. He finished speaking and turned his head to look at me. Right. Teacher Jang. I stared at the mountain of ingredients on the table, then at his expectant face. My fists clenched. I finally understood the main function of this alliance might be to exploit my labor a second time. Haiwen couldn't cook, to be precise. His understanding of the kitchen was limited to knowing that you don't put a pot in the refrigerator. I told him to wash the vegetables. 5 minutes later, he had arranged the lettuce leaves, one by one in the colander, perfectly aligned. My temples throbbed just looking at it. Are you lining them up for a parade? This way they're clean. By the time you're done washing, everyone could be eating breakfast. His face darkened and he shoved all the leaves into the water at once. Water splashed all over my face. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Hi. Haiwen immediately handed me a towel. Accident. I took the towel and wiped my face. Teacher, redumi a favor. Say it. Get out. He didn't leave. In the end, he was assigned to stand beside me and hand me things. I reached out. Salt. He handed me sugar. Vinegar. He handed me soy sauce. Garlic. He grabbed a piece of ginger. I reached my limit. Do you have a problem with me? I'm cooperating. Well, you're cooperating with a lot of opinions. Luigi stood at the kitchen door, staring at us the whole time. He finally couldn't help but walk in. Yutan used to hate it when people made a mess for her. My hand paused as I was chopping vegetables. Heen took the kitchen knife from my hand. The past is the past. He placed the ginger on the cutting board and began to chop clumsily. People change. Luigi's face darkened. After dinner, the show organized a truth or dare game. The rule was to draw a question and answer it. Those who refused had to drink a special concoction. My question was, have you ever regretted ending your last relationship? Everyone's eyes fell on me, and Luigi by hope flickered again in Luigi's eyes. I held the question card and that old wound in my chest was poked. When we broke up, I had regretted it. I thought that if I had been a little more understanding, a little gentler, asked a few less questions, he wouldn't have left later. I understood that if a relationship requires you to keep shrinking yourself to maintain it, it should have ended long ago. I put down the question card. No regrets. Luigi's knuckles turned white. Tien continued. Not even once. There was Luigi, jerked his head up. I smiled. I regretted that I ended it too late. A burst of suppressed laughter erupted in the living room. Haiwen picked up his water glass, hiding the upward twitch of his lips. It was his turn to draw a question. If your ex wants to get back together, would you agree? Yin stared straight at him. Tears quickly filled her eyes. Haiwen, I know I was immature before. After I left you, I realized how good you were to me. She stood up and walked in front of Haiwen. I came here this time to win you back. The surroundings fell completely silent. Haiwen looked down at the question card. Yun reached out her hand to him. Are you willing to give me another chance? Haiwen didn't take it. He looked up at me. I was caught off guard and almost choked on my own saliva. Why was he looking at me when a member of the Alliance encounters an emergency? Do they need to report to the leader? I desperately signaled him with my eyes. Just reject her. He stared at my face for a moment, then suddenly asked, Is something wrong with your eyes? Everyone's gaze instantly shifted to me. My toes immediately began to dig a hole. Got some sand in them. What sand is there inside the house? You talk too much. It's windy. Tianchen covered her face and laughed out loud. Only then did Haiwen look back at Yayan. I don't want to. Yun's tears fell. Why? I said it very clearly when we broke up. but we were together for years. Long time doesn't mean it should continue. Have you fallen for someone else? As she said this, she turned to look at me. The sunflower seeds in my hand suddenly lost their appeal. Haiwen didn't answer, but right at that moment, the lights in the room suddenly went out. Darkness pressed down. A few startled cries rose from the living room. I instinctively reached for my phone, but my wrist was suddenly grabbed. Haiwen's palms were slick with cold sweat, his fingers trembling violently. His breathing came fast and ragged. He didn't respond. I turned my hand over and gripped his, lowering my voice. Listen to me. It's just a power outage. His nails dug into my skin. I gritted my teeth against the pain and pressed his hand down onto the table. The table's here. The couch is to your left. The door's still open. Everyone's here. The exit's here, too. His breathing didn't slow. I grabbed an orange from the table and shoved it into his palm. Tell me, what is this? His Adam's apple bobbed. An orange. How many? One. Is it hard? A little soft. Still scared. He paused for a long moment. Yeah. Then hold on to it. His hands slowly tightened. The backup generator kicked in and the lights flickered back on. Only then did I realize he was half crouched in front of me, his forehead drenched in sweat. Our hands were still locked together. Yin stood across from us, her face ashen. She rushed over. You let me take you back to your room. Heen didn't let go of me. He lifted his head and looked at my face, something complicated pressing in his eyes. 7 years ago, the person who kept talking to me from outside the elevator door. Was that you? I froze 7 years ago. I was still a student at the film academy. The elevator in the school's broadcast hall had malfunctioned, trapping a guy inside. I couldn't see his face. I could only keep talking to him through the door. When the rescue team arrived, I had a class to get to, so I left. Early later, I heard the trapped guy was a new actor who had come to the school for an audition, but I never imagined it would be Haiwen. How do you know from what you just said? He stared at me word for word. Same as 7 years ago. Yun stood nearby, her lips completely drained of color. After the blackout incident, Haiwen's attitude toward me turned strange at breakfast. He peeled an egg and placed it in my bowl. I stared at the egg, then looked at him. Did you poison it? Take it or leave it. At noon, during the task, he took the initiative to carry my bag. I reached out to take it back, but he dodged. I can carry it myself. I know. Then why are you grabbing it? Exercise. You could lift a rock. A rock wouldn't argue with me. Then go live with a rock. A rock can't cook either. A lump of frustration lodged in my chest. I really shouldn't have expected anything from Haiwen. This guy couldn't stay gentle for 3 seconds before, tearing down his own bridge. The day's task was to make drinks. Each guest had to prepare a juice for their crush, since Hayukin and I were already paired. We had to make them for each other. I had just stepped up to the workstation when Luji suddenly walked over with a glass of pale yellow juice. Yan, this is something I used to make for you all the time. I stared at the glass. What's in it? Pear and honey. A few of the other guests immediately started teasing. Luji brought the glass to my lips. Just take a sip. I didn't want to drink it, but the cameras were on us. And Luji had that pitiful look on his face again. I had just reached out my hand when the glass was suddenly knocked out of the way by Haiwen. Juice splashed all over Luji. He shot to his feet. What the hell are you doing? Haiwen picked up the glass and sniffed it, his face turning ice cold. There's mango in it. Luji froze. A chill shot up my spine. The staff immediately rushed over to check the ingredients. The pear juice on the counter was unopened, but the mango juice was more than half empty. Luji looked down at his soaked clothes and scrambled to explain. I grabbed the wrong one. I stared at him. You just said this was something you used to make for me all the time. I mixed them up. You mixed up what you used. Yutong. I really didn't mean to. He reached out to grab my hand. Heen stepped directly in front of me. Don't touch her. Luigi suppressed his anger. This is between her and me. She's my partner now. Just a show partner. Still doesn't give you the right to feed her an allergen. Yin suddenly spoke up. Ji already said it was an accident. Haiwen, why do you always have to think the worst of people? How do you know it was an accident? He turned and locked eyes with her. Did you see him grab the wrong one with your own eyes? Yun's face went white. Luji immediately cut in. Don't drag Yun into this. That defense came way too fast. Everyone around them sensed something was wrong. Tianxin looked at Luji by then at Yen, her expression gradually shifting. The director announced a pause in recording. The staff retrieved the raw footage from the operating area. The camera clearly captured Luji by picking up the pear juice, but someone passed by the workstation midway, blocking the lens. That someone was Shihin. She lingered for a full 10 seconds when the picture returned. The positions of the 2 juice bottles had already swapped. Yun bit her lip. I just grabbed a tissue. The fire in my chest surged up, and grabbing a tissue requires swapping 2 juice bottles. I didn't swap anything. Then did the bottles grow legs and move on their own? Luji reached out to stop me. Yutong, don't make a scene. Yun has no grudge against you. Why would she want to harm you? That's what you should ask her. I shook off his hand. Or ask yourself. The tenderness on Luji's face finally cracked. What do you mean? I stepped forward last night in the storage room. Was it enjoyable? The air froze solid. The color drained from Lu J's face. Yun stumbled back half a step, hitting the edge of the table. Haiwen whipped his head toward me. His eyes screamed a single message. Weren't we supposed not to expose them yet? I glared back at him. I couldn't hold it in anymore. These 2 had already dared to gamble with my life. Luji quickly composed himself. I don't know what you're talking about. Then let me be blunt. I stared at him when you and Yun kissed. What did your mouth taste like? Yun let out a shriek. Jang Yutong, I'm not deaf. I rubbed my ringing ear. You don't need to test the sound system for the crew. You're talking nonsense. Whether it's nonsense, just check the storage room footage. A flicker of panic crossed Jian's face, quickly replaced by a cold sneer. There are no cameras in the storage room. The moment the words left her mouth, she froze. Tianxin gasped sharply. The other guests stepped back in unison. That slip of the tongue was so clear it didn't even need subtitles. I nodded slowly. So Teacher E did her reconnaissance in advance. Yun's lips trembled. I heard it from a staff member. Which staff member? I don't remember. Your memory sure knows how to pick and choose. She suddenly lunged at me, hand raised to strike. Haiwen caught her wrist. His face was utterly blank. Ihan, the cameras are still rolling. Yun jolted. She looked around and realized the director hadn't shut down all the equipment, though the live stream was paused. The on-site recording was still running. She immediately started crying. I just got provoked by her. I let out a laugh. You swapped my juice, and I'm not allowed to be angry. I ask you a couple of questions, and you're already playing the victim. What? Did your emotions get a VIP pass? Yun sobbed harder. Luji took off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. As soon as the action was complete, he realized it was inappropriate and quickly withdrew his hand. But everyone had already seen it. The director's face was pitch black. He had the staff escort the 2 away separately, temporarily halting the recording. I turned and walked into the restroom the moment the door shut. My legs suddenly gave way. I gripped the sink, my palms slick with cold sweat. That glass of juice had nearly touched my lips. I didn't dare think further. Someone knocked twice on the door. Jang Yutong. It was Haiwen. I'm fine. A few seconds of silence outside. Your voice gets shrill when you lie. I shot back immediately. Yours is the shrill one. Open the door. No. I'll count to 3. Count to 300. It won't matter. 1. Childish. 2. This is the women's restroom. Footsteps sounded from outside. I yanked the door open. You actually dared to come in. Haiwen stood at the doorway holding an epinephrine auto-injector. You don't have this in your bag. I froze. He pressed the pen into my hand. Carry this with you from now on. How did you know I have a severe allergy? That drama 7 years ago. You ate a mango cake and ended up in the hospital. You were there, too. I was. He lowered his eyes. And I was the one who took you to the hospital. I gripped the pen tightly, my fingertips tingling that day. My consciousness was hazy. I only remembered someone carrying me on their back and rushing into the emergency room. Later, Luji told me it was his assistant who took me there. But that day, Luji never showed up. I lifted my head to look at Haiwen. Why did you never say anything? There was no need. Then why were you always targeting me? His expression suddenly turned awkward. Who was targeting you? 3 years ago at the awards ceremony, you said my acting was passable when I wasn't delivering lines. Your agent didn't show you the full interview. What full interview? He pulled out his phone and scrolled to a video. In the video, the host asked him how he rated my acting. He said, passable. Her eyes are powerful when she's not speaking lines, and even more compelling after she delivers them. Her handling of the character is more mature than many veterans. What later went viral was only the first half of that sentence. My brain ground to a halt again. Hai Yuchan frowned. You really didn't know. What Luji showed me was the edited version. We stared at each other for a long time. The same absurd thought surfaced in both our minds. Maybe the hostility between us over these past few years had been carefully fed to us from the very beginning. Haiwen and I spent the entire night exchanging past information. I dug up all the chat records Luji had sent me 3 years ago. He told me that Haiwen had mocked me behind my back for writing on Hype to Success. 2 years ago, he told me that Haiwen had snatched a movie role I was in talks for a year ago. He told me that Haiwen had demanded the brand choose between him and me. Haiwen also pulled out the messages Ihan had sent him. The content almost perfectly mirrored mine. Yun told him that I had insulted his line delivery, that I had secretly snatched his roles, and that I had demanded the brand pull down his promotional photos. We sat in the corner of the terrace, growing quieter the more we read. Finally, I raised a hand to cover my face. What the hell have we been fighting over these past few years? Heen leaned back in his chair. Wits, and where are the wits? Nowhere to be seen. I lifted my foot to kick him. Don't lump me in with that. You believed it every time. So did you. So nowhere to be seen. I was left speechless by his retort a few seconds later. We both laughed at the same time after laughing. Only a chill remained in our hearts. Why were Luji and Yun trying to drive a wedge between us? The answer came quickly 3 years ago. Haiwen and I were both shortlisted for the same film. The production team had originally intended for us to co-star. Luji was the head of my agency contract at the time. Yun was in the process of setting up a personal studio with Haiwen if Haiwen and I had successfully collaborated. Our resources would have directly connected. That would have weakened both Luji and Yun's control over us. That film never got made, but Haiwen and I had completely fallen out in the years that followed. Whenever we encountered the same project, we would actively avoid each other. The ones who benefited the most were precisely Luji and Yun. I scrolled through my phone, my stomach churning. Luji said back then not without him. I couldn't get anything. Yen said something similar. They weren't trying to get back together with us. I lifted my head to look at Haiwen. They were trying to regain control over us. Haiwen's gaze turned completely cold. The production team soon sent out a notice. After investigation, the juice incident was deemed a placement error by the staff. Yun hadn't swapped the bottles. Luji had only taken it by mistake. Both could continue filming. I stared at the notice 3 times. A placement error by the staff. Haiwen let out a cold laugh. The original footage of the operation table was replaced. Who has that kind of authority? The investors among the many investment companies backing the show. One was called by E-Culture. Luji by one character from each name as if they were afraid someone wouldn't find out. I slammed my phone onto the table. They invested in this show, to be precise. They are one of the behind-the-scenes investors. So, our invitation wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't. And the new guest joining at the last minute wasn't arranged by the production team. It wasn't. My teeth clenched so hard they ate. They wanted to get back together with us during the live stream and then scrub all the past clean. Haiwen nodded. And they could ride the show's hype, too. Boost themselves. Using my allergy as a joke was meant for Luji to save me. That seems to be the plan. My hands were shaking from anger. The plan was simple. Yun swapped the juice. I drank it and showed mild symptoms. Luji discovered it in time and took out medicine to save me. A perfect act of a deep-artade X saving a former lover was complete. But they never once considered whether my allergy could kill me. I stood up to go find the director. Hi. Highwind grabbed my wrist. There's no evidence right now, so I'm supposed to keep playing along with them. Play. He pulled me back and play even better than they do. The next day, the show resumed its live broadcast. The director announced a 4-person date. I was grouped with Highwind, Allergy, and Ihan. The location was a pottery studio. The task required us to make a gift for someone we wanted to thank. Allergy made a ceramic cup. The cup was engraved with my name. Yun made a tie clip and gave it to Highwind. When it was my turn, I held up a lopsided ceramic bowl. Tianshin struggled to keep her smile. Utang, who do you want to give this to? I looked at Highwind to teach her. The smile on Luigi's face vanished instantly. Tian asked, "Is there any special meaning?" "Yes," I said seriously. "His cooking is so terrible. I suggest he just eat dirt from now on." Highwind took the bowl. "Thanks. You're not mad. What I made for you is also a gift." A staff member brought over a ceramic lid. Heen placed the lid on my bowl. "It fit perfectly," he said calmly. "Trash should be sorted and stored separately." I stared at that ugly bowl with its lid. So angry, I immediately lunged to pinch him. He dodged with a laugh. I chased him halfway across the pottery studio. The live stream's popularity shot back to #1. Luigi sat in his seat, the ceramic cup in his hand developing a crack from his grip. Yun suddenly placed the tie clip on the table. "Yuan, have you forgotten how good we used to be?" Yuan stopped. "I haven't forgotten." A glimmer of hope lit UPS eyes. "Then why?" "It's precisely because I haven't forgotten that I don't want to go back." The expression on her face completely shattered. Luigi also stood up. "Yu Tang, you and Highwind are completely wrong for each other." I shot back who I'm right for. "You get to decide. He doesn't understand you, and you do." I picked up the cup he made. "I'm severely allergic to mangoes, and you didn't know. I stopped drinking sweet coffee, and you didn't know. I need the lights on to sleep, and you didn't know." I placed the cup back in front of him. "Louis, all you know is the obedient Zhang Yutang from the past than me now. You don't recognize it all." Luigi's mouth twitched. His breathing grew heavier. "Did Highwind tell you to say that?" "She has a brain." Highwind walked over to stand beside me. "She doesn't need anyone else to tell her what to say." Luigi slammed his fist on the table. The ceramic cup hit the floor and shattered into pieces. Everyone on set was startled. He stared at me, his eyes filled with uncontrollable rage. "Zhang Yutang, you're going to regret this sooner or later." I looked at the fragments scattered on the ground and suddenly felt completely calm in the past. Whenever he got angry, I would instinctively apologize now. I just found it noisy. "Regret what?" I met his gaze. "Regret finally not listening to you anymore." That night, after the pottery studio incident, a secretly filmed video suddenly shot to the top of the trending list. In the footage, Highwind and I were sitting in a corner of the terrace. I said, "This damn show. I don't want to stay in it for another minute." Highwind replied, "Hold on a little longer. The money hasn't arrived yet." The video cut off there. The comment section was flooded with criticism. Some people said we were deceiving the audience. Some said we were treating romance like a business. Others dug up my old interviews, calling me hypocritical, money-grubbing, and battered. Brands contacted my agent overnight, demanding a public apology. The director also called Highwind and me into the meeting room. "You two have to clarify this." I stared at the table. "How?" "Just say it was a joke. It wasn't even the full video." "Where's the full video?" "The production team didn't capture it." I looked up at the director. "The production team didn't capture it, but a secretly filmed video did." The director avoided my gaze. "It's pointless to dwell on that now." "Then what's the point?" "Controlling the damage." He pushed 2 statements in front of us, admitting that the interactions in the show contained elements of performance, and apologizing for the inappropriate remarks. Finally, it had to emphasize that Highwind and I had only a casual private relationship. I picked up the paper, my fingertips turning cold. As long as I signed it, all the responsibility would fall on us. Luigi and Yun successfully packaged themselves as the deeply loving exes who were merely being used. Highwind took the two statements and tore them into 4 pieces right in front of the director. The director shot to his feet. Heen released the video. What? There's a fixed camera on the terrace. Haiwen tossed the shredded paper into the trash bin. Put out the full 10 minutes. The director's face turned ashen. The equipment wasn't on at the time. Is it that it wasn't on or that you didn't dare to turn it on? No one spoke in the conference room. Haiwen pulled out his phone. If the production team won't release it, I will. The director stared at him. How do you have the video in your hands? That day, the head director asked me to test a portable device. I forgot to turn it off. He tapped on the video on the screen. After I said I didn't want to stay, I immediately added another line. They used allergens to harm me, and the production team was going to cover it up. Why should I stay? Haiwen replied. Hold on a little longer. The money hasn't come through yet. Once we have enough evidence, we'll take the penalty fee, too. The full conversation was crystal clear. The director's face drained completely of color. I looked at Haiwen. When did you realize the device wasn't turned off? That night, and you didn't tell me. If I told you, would you have still spoken the truth? So you recorded me to preserve evidence. Do you bring recording devices even when you shower? I don't have that kind of hobby. Then what's your hobby? He suddenly shut his mouth. The director slammed his fist on the table. If you two release that video, the show is ruined. I turned to look at him. I don't know if the show will be ruined or not, but I almost ended up in the emergency room because of your show. The director's lips trembled a few times, but in the end, no words came out 10 minutes later. Haiwen released the full video. Public opinion flipped instantly. Viewers followed the clues and discovered that the juice incident had a different story behind it. The time the production team had shut down the live stream, the footage they had deleted, and the contradictory statements from Luji and Yun were all pieced together. Bay culture was also exposed. More and more people began to question why the two exes would co-own a company under mounting pressure. The production team could only issue a statement, admitting that Bay culture had invested in the show, but claiming they were unaware of the personal relationship between the two. That evening, the live stream resumed. The director demanded that we follow the original arrangement and participate in the heartbeat challenge. The guests took turns using different methods to raise the heart rate of their designated target. In challenged Hai to Haiwen. She changed into the dress she had worn on their first date and brought out photos from that time. Haiwen's heart rate dropped from 68 to 65. Tianchen stared at the instrument, her face full of awkwardness. Teacher, he is very calm right now. I sat nearby, cracking sunflower seeds. He's almost asleep. Yun bit her lip. Haiwen, do you really feel nothing at all? I do. She immediately looked up. What? Sleepy. The other guests couldn't help but burst out laughing. Then it was Luji's turn to challenge me. He pulled out a letter I had once written to him. Yutong, do you still remember of? Of course. I remembered that letter was written on my 24th birthday. In it, I said, I hoped he would be with me for every birthday from then on. Later, he missed all the important days in my life, and now he was taking out this letter, using it as proof that I still loved him. My heart rate stayed steady at 72. Luji refused to give up and read it again. The instrument dropped to 70. Taiyin cleared her throat lightly. It seems very calm, too. Hi. Haiwen chimed in from the side. She's almost asleep. I turned to glare at him. You sure hold a grudge. Learning on the job. Finally, it was Haiwen's turn to challenge me. He didn't prepare anything. He just walked up to me. I crossed my arms. Bring it on. He lowered his head and leaned close to my ear. His breath landed on my earlobe. My heart rate instantly shot from 70 to 108. A round of screams erupted from the scene. I clenched my teeth. What did you say? Tianchen asked excitedly. He straightened up looking completely serious. I told her that the false eyelash on her left side was coming unglued. My face instantly burned red. I raised my hand to cover my eyes. Haiwen's shoulders shook with laughter. The live stream audience went absolutely wild. Zhang Yutong isn't having a heart flutter. She's having a social death. Other people rely on good looks. He relies on pointing out a false eyelash. Haiwen, you deserve to be single. I chased him around for half a lap until the staff stopped us. The instrument was reattached to Haiwen's hand. Now it was my turn to challenge him. I stood in front of him, my mind completely blank. Tianxin reminded me, Yuang can do an intimate gesture. The audience's cheers from the live stream echoed through the venue speakers. I steadied myself, raised my hand, and grabbed Haiwen's collar. His eyes widened slightly. I stood on my tiptoes and leaned in close to his ear. Your pants zipper is open. His heart rate instantly shot up to 120. Heen jerked his head down. The next second, I crouched down, laughing so hard I was on the ground. Got you. The whole place erupted in laughter. Haiwen closed his eyes. He bent down and scooped me up from the floor in one motion. Zhang Yutong, what you're done for. You warned me about my fake eyelashes first. I was stating a fact. I was offering a blessing. What blessing? May it really happen next time. He was so mad he raised his hand and pinched my cheek. I struggled, trying to push him away in the midst of our tussle. He suddenly slipped. He dragged me forward as he fell. My lips met a patch of warmth. All the sounds around us vanished at once. My eyes flew open. Haiwen froze too. The monitor let out a sharp beep. His heart rate, 146 after the kiss. Haiwen and I sprang apart at the same time. Tianxin was covering her mouth, her eyes wide as saucers. The other guests had all stood up. The live stream comments were scrolling so fast I couldn't read a single one. I raised my hand to cover my mouth. Only 3 words left in my head. I'm screwed. Haiwen's ears were completely red. He looked down to straighten his clothes, but his fingers fumbled and buttoned 2 buttons wrong. I pointed at his chest. You messed up. He undid them and tried again. Wrong again. I couldn't help but let out a laugh. He looked up at me, that funny kind of. It's funnier when you don't talk. I threw that line from 3 years ago right back at him, but he didn't argue. He just stared at me, the corners of his mouth lifting slightly. Yin suddenly turned and walked off the set. Liji followed with a grim face. That night, I received a photo from an unknown number. In the picture, Haiwen and Yun were entering a hotel together. The timestamp said, 2 years ago. They hadn't broken up yet. Then another message came through. A recording. Haiwen's voice came through clearly. Zhang Yutong is easy to use. As long as I'm tied to her, the show's popularity won't drop. I held the phone, my fingertips growing cold. The warmth from that kiss, just moments ago, vanished without a trace. I sat on the edge of the bed, listening to that recording 6 times. With each listen, my chest felt heavier. Liji used to say the same thing. He said, everyone who got close to me had ulterior motives. He said once I left him, I'd be used by everyone. All those doubts I'd buried came surging back suddenly. There was a knock on the door. Zhang Yutong Haiwen was standing outside. I didn't say a word. He knocked again. Open the door. I'm going to sleep. Your voice gets sharper when you lie. I yanked the door open. Can you find a different way to judge me? When he saw my face, his smile quickly faded. What happened? I handed him my phone. The photo and recording were both on the screen. After Hayukin finished looking, he didn't rush to explain first. He asked, who sent this? An unknown number. Do you believe it? I stared at him. I want to hear it from you. He was silent for a few seconds. The photo is real. My stomach clenched tight. That day, Yun and I did go to the same hotel. What for? She said she had information leaked from the hospital about my mother and wanted to meet. Haiwen pulled out his own phone and pulled up his schedule from 2 years ago. When I got to the hotel, Yun didn't show up. Liji messaged me saying, you were there too. Me. He said, you were planning to release a recording proving I badmouthed colleagues privately. The tangled threads in my mind started to weave together. Liji told me that day that you were going to hold a press conference, saying I stole a role. So we both showed up and then nothing happened. He opened his cloud backup. There was the full recording before that same sentence. There was another part. The show's director asked, why did you agree to join? Zhang Yutong is also a regular guest. 1 TT that affect your decision. Haiwen replied, Jang Yutong is easy to use. My heart sank. He kept playing. She and I can argue, just by sitting next to each other. The show team wouldn't need to design any segments, and the buzz wouldn't drop. But she has a straightforward temper. She won't stab you in the back. I'd rather have her curse me to my face than waste time on someone who's polite on the surface. I looked up at him. Hywin placed his phone into my hand. The second half was cut out. You said I was easy to use. Wrong choice of words. What's wrong with it? You're not that easy to use. At least you have conscience. Mainly because you're not that easy to control. I lifted my foot and kicked him. He dodged to the side, and a hint of laughter finally appeared in his eyes. Believe me now. Temporarily. Why temporarily? Probation period. Hywin was silent for a moment. Jang Yutong. Thank you. I froze. For what? Thank you for asking me first. When those words landed, a sour ache suddenly swelled in my chest. In the past, I had never asked. Seeing the edited video, I directly believed Allergy by hearing someone else's account. I never gave Hywin a chance to explain. We've been manipulated for so many years, not just because the other side was too good at lying, but also because we never truly understood each other. I returned his phone to him. From now on, if something happens, just say it directly. Okay, don't be sarcastic. You first. Forget it. Then, he laughed out loud. Just then my phone rang again. This time it was a registration document. Bay Culture was founded 3 years ago. The actual controller wasn't Liji or Ihan. It was someone named Zhaoku. I stared at the name and suddenly remembered Zhaoku was Liji's former assistant. She quit suddenly a year ago and hadn't appeared in public since. There was another line of text below the document. If you want to know their real relationship, come to the old film studio base at 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. The next afternoon, Hywin and I took leave from the Love House in a restroom at the old film studio base. Zoku had already been waiting for a long time. She looked exhausted when she saw us. Her first words were, "The juice wasn't the first time." My heart tightened. Zoku pushed a computer over. The mango cake teacher Jang ate 3 years ago was also arranged by Liji. My fingers clenched abruptly. On the screen was a chat log. Liji had instructed his assistant to swap the regular cake for a mango cake. His reasoning was that after I had an allergic reaction and was hospitalized, he could drop his work to rush back and create the image of a devoted boyfriend. But that day, he had a last-minute meeting with Yun and missed the timing. In the end, the person who took me to the hospital was Hywin. I stared at those few lines of text, a ringing sound filling my ears. So 3 years ago, he had already dared to risk my life to generate buzz for himself. Zhao, Cook continued. You did something similar, too. She pulled up another record. The old incident of Hywin being trapped in an elevator was actively leaked by Yun to marketing accounts. She wanted to use it to create an image of Hywin relying on her. After the message was sent out, Hywin discovered it early and intercepted it in time now. On this show, she deliberately brought it up publicly again. Hywin's face turned terrifyingly cold. Why tell us only now? Zhaoku lowered her eyes because I was scared. Scared of them suing me. Scared of losing my job and scared that no one would believe me. Her fingers kept trembling. Bay Culture is registered under my name. They had me hold the shares as a nominee. After the juice incident, they demanded I take full responsibility. They said if things blew up, they would prove I had swapped the ingredients on my own. I did things for them for 3 years, and in the end, I became someone they could just throw under the bus. She opened the last folder. Inside were hotel records, transfer receipts, complete chat logs, and an overseas registration document. Liji and Yun had already registered their marriage 2 years ago. The registration date was 4 months before they broke up with us. My vision went dark in front of me. For months, they were dating us while simultaneously becoming a legally married couple. Then later, on the same day, they each initiated a breakup. Now they're jointly investing in a love variety show, coming back to us under the guise of chasing after their exes. They want to use the show to prove that there was no intimate relationship between them in the past. Once the storm passes, They'll publicly reveal a story of meeting on the show and gradually falling in love this way. Marital infidelity would be disguised as normal dating after a breakup. The past timeline would also be completely buried. I stared at those pieces of evidence, my stomach turning violently. After they got married, why did they still keep in touch with us? Zhaoka's voice was very low resources. Luji used Teacher Jang to get a lot of film and TV projects back then. Yoon's studio has also been running on Teacher his connections. They couldn't afford to lose both of you at the same time. Haiwen suddenly stood up and kicked the chair away. The chair slammed heavily into the wall. His chest heaved violently, his eyes bloodshot. I grabbed his wrist. He looked down at me. His palm was terrifyingly cold. Don't act rashly first. They nearly killed you. I know. You don't know how dangerous it was 3 years ago. His voice was the doctor said. If you'd arrived 10 minutes later, you might have gone into shock. I froze. Zhaoka quietly left the lounge. After the door closed, the room was just the two of us. Heen turned his back to me, bracing his hands on the table. I was at the hospital that whole day. Why didn't you wait for me to wake up? Luji came, so you left. He told me that after you woke up, you didn't want to see outsiders. My nose stung with bitterness. You're not an outsider. Heen's hands tightened on the table. He turned around, his eyes holding too much weight. Then, what am I to you? My breath caught. The question came too suddenly. I opened my mouth, but not a single word came out. He waited a few seconds, then suddenly looked away. Forget it. Haiwen, let's deal with the evidence first. Don't change the subject. Didn't you say to just say what needs to be said? I meant you. Are you not a person? You're the one who's not a person. The familiar bickering began, and the tension from moments ago dissipated by half. I grabbed the hem of his shirt. When this is all over, I'll give you an answer. He looked down at my hand. Why can't you say it now? Because my mind is a mess. When is your mind ever not a mess? Heen, fine. He held my wrist, gently pulled my hand down, but didn't let go. I'll wait for you. We made 3 copies of all the evidence. 1 copy went to the lawyer. 1 copy went to the regulatory authorities. The last copy was kept for public release. But if we exposed it now, Luji and Yun would definitely turn around and accuse Zhaoku of fabricating the documents. We needed them to personally admit the key facts. So Haiwen and I decided to put on one last act during the final confession night. After returning to the house, I deliberately started a fight with Haiwen. I slammed the cup heavily onto the table. You got close to me, and it was just for the fame, wasn't it? Haiwen's face darkened. Same to you. From today on, we're ending our partnership. Fine by me. I turned and went upstairs as I passed by Luji. He reached out and studied me. Yuten, I warned you a long time ago. I held back the urge to kick him away, raising my reened eyes. I just wouldn't listen. A glint of triumph lit up Luji's eyes. On the other side, Yin was also walking toward Haiwen. She said softly, Haiwen, I'm the only one who won't use you. Haiwen kept his head down and didn't argue that night. Luji came to find me on his own. Pick me for the final confession night. I sat on the sofa, deliberately hesitating. How do I know you won't hurt me again? I never intended to hurt you. What about the juice? That was really an accident. Why did Jijin block the camera? A flicker of impatience passed through Luji's eyes. She acted on her. Ow, you knew. He quickly changed his answer. I guessed. I lowered my eyes, pinching the hem of my shirt. I don't dare trust anyone right now. Luji softened his tone. All you have to do is choose me during the final confession. After the show ends, we can start over. What about Yen? Luji's pupils contracted. What does she have to do with this? I looked up at him. Aren't you too close? We're just partners. Are you sure? I'm sure. He said it without a single moment of hesitation. He didn't know that the necklace I was wearing contained a new recording device the show crew had just installed in the room next door. Yun was saying the exact same thing to Haiwen. She said she had nothing to do with Luji. Not in the past. Not now. I lowered my head to hide my cold smile. The final net was already tightening. Final confession night. Live broadcast. The production team, worried we might expose more inside details, hastily removed most of the free-form segments from the show. The director demanded everyone speak in a fixed order. Yun was the first to step up. She wore a red dress, holding in her hand the ring she and Haiwen had exchanged back in the day. Haiwen, we've missed each other for far too long. I know you still have feelings for me. This time, I don't want to let go of your hand again. As she finished speaking, she reached out her hand toward Haiwen. Luji immediately walked over to me. He took out that old love letter. Yutan, I've always kept the letter you wrote to me. I know you were just influenced by the noise outside which led you to misunderstand me. As long as you're willing to come back, I can let go of everything from the past. Hearing that last sentence, I almost laughed out loud. He was the one who did wrong, yet he was still the one choosing not to hold a grudge. The beads of his abacus were practically flying into the audience's faces. Tianchen looked at me and Haiwen in turn. Now, please make your final choices. I took a step toward Luji. The smugness in his eyes quickly spread. Yun also stared intently at Haiwen. Haiwen walked toward her. Gasps erupted from the scene. The live stream comments spiraled completely out of control, just as Luji reached out his hand to me. I stopped. Louis, I'll ask you one last time. What exactly is your relationship with Yin? Without a moment's hesitation, he answered, just ordinary friends. Yun immediately chimed in. He and I have no personal relationship whatsoever. I nodded. Very well. The big screen on set suddenly lit up. Overseas registration documents were displayed right in the center. The names registered were none other than Luji and Ihan. The registration date was clearly marked. The smile on Luji's face froze completely. Yun screamed, "Turn it off." She rushed toward the control booth, but was stopped by the staff. Luji glared sharply at the director. Who gave you permission to play this? The director stood behind the camera, his face pale. This live broadcast had already been taken over by another production team. The original show crew was under investigation for concealing safety incidents. No one was listening to Luji's orders anymore. I continued to release the evidence. Their hotel records, contracts for jointly purchased properties, financial transactions from Bay culture, and a complete chat logs of them using edited videos to drive a wedge between me and Haiwen. The last thing to appear was that mango cake from 3 years ago. Luji had personally given the order to swap it out. The scene was dead silent. The number of viewers in the live stream kept skyrocketing. Luji suddenly lunged toward me. These are all fake. Haiwen stepped in front of me in one swift move. The documents have been notarized and the chat logs have also undergone data verification. Yen shook her head, crying. Zhaoku forged them. Zoku stepped out from among the staff. She held the original hard drive in her hand. All the instructions have your voice recordings on them. Yun's face twisted instantly. You betrayed us. Zoka looked at her. When you made me take the fall for the juice incident, did you ever think about today? Luji turned and pointed at Yin. She did it all. Yun's head snapped up. What did you say? Swapping the juice was her idea. Filming the secret video was also her doing. I had no idea she would hurt you. Tongue. Yun lunged at him, slapping him across the face. Louis, how dare you push it all onto me? The crisp sound of the slap echoed throughout the scene. Luji's face was knocked to the side. He shoved Zion back with his hand. Wasn't it you who was jealous of Jian Yuang? Back then, you said that as long as we controlled her, you could get the project. You also said Haiwen couldn't live without you. Shut up. The two completely lost control. They blamed each other, scrambling to offload the dirtiest deeds onto the other. All the scheming from the past 3 years was spilled out by their own mouths. The guests on set were all dumbfounded. Tian hugged her script, her mouth hanging open the entire time. The live stream comments scrolled rapidly. I thought it was an exchasing love. Turns out it was a married couple's joint scam. These two not doing a double act is such a waste. Using someone else's life for publicity. They must be held accountable. Zhang Yutong and Haiwen bickered for 3 years. And it turns out it was all remotely controlled by this couple. The Yutong duo aren't mortal enemies. They're the scam duo. The director signaled the security to step in. Luigi suddenly broke free from the restraint and rushed in front of me. Yutong, let me explain. I took a step back. His eyes were bloodshot. I did all of this because I was afraid of losing you. You're getting more and more famous. You're meeting more and more people. So I had to find a way to make you dependent on me. I truly love you. I stared at him. My nails no longer dug into my palms. My stomach didn't churn anymore. This person, who once had the power to sway my emotions with ease, now only felt like a stranger. You don't love me. You just love the version of Jang Yutong who was obedient, easy to control, and could bring you resources. Too bad she's already gone. Luigi reached out to grab me. Haiwen locked his wrist. Can't understand human speech. Luigi glared at him. You think she actually likes you. She's just using you to get back at me. He turned to look at me. My heart tightened. This guy wasn't going to ask for an answer at a time like this. Was he? Sure enough, he spoke. Is that so? Every camera on set was aimed at me. My scalp instantly went numb. Heen, this is the part where we deal with the bad guy. I know. Then why are you asking? Just taking the chance. How is this something you take a chance on? Saves time. I was so mad I raised my hand to hit him. He caught my hand, but the corner of his mouth lifted. Luigi was still losing his mind beside us. Gianna Tong, you'll regret leaving me. I didn't look back. The thing I regret most is that after I met you, I spent too long doubting myself. That won't happen anymore. The security guards escorted Luigi by and Yun off the set. The two of them kept shifting the blame onto each other the whole way at the door. Yunnan suddenly spun around and shouted, Haiwen, what makes you choose her? Haiwen stood in the center of the lights, holding my hand, because when I was trapped, she didn't ask me if it was worth saving. She just told me the door would open. Yun's face went completely gray. The door slammed shut. This 3-year-long scam was finally over. The final confession night didn't go according to the original plan. Tianxin clutched the script, hesitating as she looked toward the director. The new director said a few words into her earpiece. Her eyes lit up instantly, even though a lot of unexpected things happened. The show still has one last question. She looked at me and Haiwen. Right now, there's no X, no mission, and no request from the production team. May I ask, do you two still want to make a final choice? Haiwen and I were still holding hands. I hadn't noticed earlier, too focused on dealing with Luigi, now that everyone was staring. My palms started sweating instantly. I tried to pull my hand back. Heen held on tighter. I whispered, let go. No, there are cameras everywhere. I know your palm is sweaty. It's yours. Stop slandering me. Tianxin reminded us, too. The microphones can pick that up. The crowd burst into laughter. I raised my hand to cover my face. I'd already lost all my dignity on this show. Haiwen turned to face me. Jang Yutong, what? You said you'd give me an answer once this was over. I played dumb. An answer to what? What I am to you. A colleague. His face darkened. A friend. Even darker. A meal. Buddy. He turned to leave. I quickly grabbed him. Why are you getting so worked up? I'm not. Your face is twisted with anger. It's natural. Then get it fixed. Jang. Yutong. He gritted out my name. I watched his ears slowly turn red and suddenly didn't want to tease him anymore. Hi, Haiwen. He looked at me annoyed. I took a deep breath. I used to think you were the person I hated the most. And now I realize I was wrong about that. Just wrong. Why do you have so many demands? I waited 3 years. My heart gave a heavy thump. 3 years. Haiwen pressed his lips together. The screen on set suddenly switched. A never-before-seen old interview began to play. 3 years ago, a reporter asked Haiwen which actress he most looked forward to working with. He answered, Jang Yutong. The reporter reminded him, I heard you two don't get along. That's not true. Then, why did she publicly say that watching your scenes is better with the sound off in the video? Haiwen was silent for a few seconds. Maybe I said the wrong thing first. So, are you planning to explain she doesn't want to listen? How do you know she doesn't want to listen? She deleted me. Laughter rippled through the room. I stared at him in disbelief. When did you ever add me? The night of the awards ceremony. I never received it. Hywin pulled out his phone and scrolled to the friend request history. The request note read, "Hello, I'm teacher. He's assistant. I'd like to discuss the interview clip with you." My eyelid twitched. Who wrote that? I did. Why were you impersonating your own assistant? I was afraid you wouldn't accept, and I would have accepted the assistant. As it turns out, no. I remember that night. I really had received a friend request because the profile picture was a cat squatting on a toilet. I suspected it was a scammer and rejected it outright. That profile picture was you, too. Yeah. Why did you use a picture like that? Yoon picked it. Now it all clicked. Yoon never wanted us to communicate from the very start. She had deliberately been blocking it. My chest ached with a mix of bitterness and heat. After 3 years of circling around, we were finally standing face to face. Hywin asked in a low voice, "So, what's your answer?" I looked at him. "I'm willing to continue as partners. Just partners. Probationary boyfriend." His brows instantly relaxed. "How long is the probation?" "Depends on your performance." "What are the criteria?" "First, no tricking me with wasabi." "Deal." "Second, no pointing out that my fake eyelashes are coming unglued." "Deal." "Third, learn to cook." "Pick another one." "I can hire a chef." "That's different." "Hire two." I was so annoyed. I laughed. "What exactly can you do?" "I can wait." I froze. He dropped his playful expression and looked at me seriously. "Jang Yu Tong, I've waited 3 years. Learning a few more meals doesn't matter." My nose stung sharply. I immediately lowered my head, not wanting the cameras to catch my tears. But he reached out and lifted my chin. "What are you crying about?" "I'm not crying. Your eyes are red. It's the fake eyelashes poking me. The left one is coming unglued again." All my emotions shattered in an instant. "Hywin!" I raised my hand to hit him. He dodged while laughing. Tainshin shouted from the side. Her voice, "Congratulations to the UT couple for getting together." Streamers shot into the air. The audience's screams made my ears go numb. Hayu-chan suddenly stopped, turned around, and pulled me into a hug. I crashed head first into his chest. "What are you doing?" "Exercising my rights as a probationary boyfriend who said you could hug me. You can apply for a review." "How long until the results come out?" "Forever." I looked up and glared at him. "That's a tyrannical clause. It's written on the last page of the contract." I didn't read it. I know. As he said this, he bent down and kissed me this time. There was no slip-up, no accident. My hand was still in the position to push him away. It paused for a few seconds, then slowly grabbed onto the corner of his shirt. The screams around us went completely out of control before I closed my eyes. Only one thought remained. Maybe not reading the contract this time wasn't such a bad deal after all. After the show ended, Luji and Yun were formally placed under investigation. Juice incident, the cake incident, malicious editing, contract fraud, all entered legal proceedings. Multiple projects under Bay culture were suspended. The staff members who had once been pushed forward to take the blame also came forward one after another to provide evidence. The loving images the two had crafted on the show shattered beyond repair. Luji sent me many messages. The first was an apology. The second was an explanation. The third started with accusations. By the end, he said he was going to publicly expose all my past scandals. I forwarded the messages to my lawyer and blocked him. Yun also contacted Hywin. She said she had been deceived by Luji. She said the person she truly loved had always been Hywin. Hywin only replied with one sentence. "Materials have been forwarded to the lawyer." When I saw that, I patted him on the shoulder. "Teacher, you've improved." "What? You finally learned to talk like a human." "I learned from you." "Do I talk that coldly?" "No." He looked at me. "You're more infuriating." After we went public with our relationship, it trended on the hot search for 3 days. The most excited person wasn't a fan. It was the host from the awards ceremony 3 years ago. He publicly reposted our official announcement. I knew back then that one of them was bound to drive the other straight to the Civil Affairs Bureau. The comment section was flooded with requests for him to start teaching classes. During our first month of dating, Hywin started learning to cook. The first time he tried to fry an egg, he forgot to add oil. The egg stuck stubbornly to the bottom of the pan. He stood there, spatula in hand, staring down the pan for 10 solid minutes. I leaned against the kitchen doorway. Need a hand? No, the egg is already a goner. I can still save it. Are you planning to give it CPR? He scowled and scraped at it for a while, then finally tossed the whole pan into the sink. The second time he made noodles and added salt 3 times. I took one bite and immediately rushed to chug water. He stood beside me looking nervous. That bad? I downed half a glass. Not bad. He let out a sigh of relief. I added, perfect for pickling vegetables. The third time he finally learned how to make when I got home after wrapping a scene. There was a bowl of worm waiting on the table. Next to it sat a new epinephrine auto-injector. He had cleared out every single item in the house that might contain mango, even the body wash. I rummaged around for a while. Where's my mango-scented aromatherapy diffuser? Threw it out. That's not something you eat. Can't even smell it. Are you being too paranoid? He paused from organizing the medicine cabinet. Jang Yu Tong, HM. I don't want to rush you to the emergency room again. My words got stuck in my throat. The hot congee slid over my tongue, warmth pressing all the way down into my chest. I lowered my head and took a couple of bites. The congee is good today. Just good. Really good. The corner of his mouth was about to lift when I continued, mainly because there's no mango in it. His face darkened again. 6 months later, the show launched a reunion special. The director asked each guest to bring an item with the most sentimental value. I brought that crooked ceramic bowl. Heen brought a contract. Tianxin asked curiously, what kind of contract is this? Probationary boyfriend application for full-time promotion. The whole set burst into laughter. I took the contract and flipped through it. The earlier clauses were all normal. No silent treatment. No disappearing. Direct communication when there's a problem. But on the last page, it stated that both parties voluntarily upgrade their romantic relationship to marriage. I looked up at him. This is a contract. Yeah, a proposal, pretty much. Where's the ring? He pulled a small box out of his pocket. When he opened it, there was no ring inside. Instead, there were 2 coins. I recognized them. The last 2 yuan left over from our first date at the farmer's market. I picked up the coins. What's the meaning? You said this was dignity. So I'm handing it over. The whole set erupted in laughter again. I couldn't help laughing either. Heen, you're proposing with just 2 yuan. There's more. He pulled out another box. The ring sat quietly inside. He dropped to one knee. Everyone who had been laughing just a moment ago fell silent. Jang Yutong, the first time I saw you was at the audition for that movie that never got made. The second time I saw you, I was stuck in an elevator and only heard your voice. It took me a long time to confirm it was you. We've missed each other so many times, misunderstood each other for so long, but now I don't want to miss you again. His fingers were trembling slightly. Will you marry me? My eyes suddenly burned. Tianxin whispered nearby. Yutong, answer him. I sniffled. Let me see the ring first. The tension on high. Yuck. Face cracked. Jang Yutong. Just kidding. I held out my hand. Yes. The moment the ring slipped onto my finger, the set erupted in screams again. Heen stood up and hugged me. I whispered in his ear, but we still need to revise the contract. What needs changing? The clause about you being responsible for cooking. It has to be added. His body stiffened. Is it too late to back out now? Too late. I can hire 2 chefs. Denied. Jang Yutong. Mister. Please respect the contract. He lowered his head and silenced me with a kiss. The crowd immediately roared with cheers later when the reunion special aired. Viewers left comments. Other guys propose with diamonds. Haiwen hands over 2 yuan of dignity. The first thing John Yutong does after accepting the ring is force the groom to learn how to cook. The morally bankrupt duo has finally paired up internally. The entertainment industry is safe now. I held my phone and read the last comment out loud to Haiwen. He was in the kitchen frying eggs. After hearing me, he turned around to look at me. Safe now. Temporarily. Then come over and taste it. I stared at the pan wearily. Did you add salt this time? I did. How many times? He fell silent. I turned around and ran. Hi. Highwind chased after me with the spatula in hand. Jangy Tong, get back here. I'm not eating. I only added it twice. Keep it for pickling your own vegetables. The living room was in chaos. The ceramic bowl on the table wobbled twice from the commotion, then steadied itself. Under the bowl's lid were the 2 coins left over from our first date, and a newly written note. Dignity has been surrendered. No returns or exchanges for the rest of my life.